Hi everyone, and welcome to the 5th episode of the Parent Pep Talk, advice and understanding from experts, parents, and kids. I'm your host, Gary Carton, and today we're focusing on what is commonly known as free-range parenting, which for our purposes is really about how to find the right balance between giving your kids freedom and making sure they're safe. We'll talk about how kids benefit from independence, why giving kids that freedom is easier said than done, and why doing nothing as a parent can sometimes mean everything to our kids. And off the record, we have some younger kids this week to answer a question about how it feels when their parents give them a chance to experience some independence, even at an early age. And one self-proclaimed overprotective dad takes one for the team by sharing a story about the exact moment he knew he had to make a change. Plus, our Safe Kids Tip of the Week is a great way to give your kids freedom and also keep them safe. So let's get right to it. Our expert today is Lynne Ticknor, the Education Director at the Parent Encouragement Program, or PEP. Lynn is also an author, certified parent educator, and she's been teaching parenting classes since 2006, so she's seen and heard it all. We caught up with Lynn at the PEP offices in Kensington, Maryland.
Thanks so much, Lynn, for joining me on the Parent Pep Talk. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
This is a podcast about parenting, so we always like to start there. How many kids do you have and how old are they?
Oh my goodness. I have 4 kids, and my youngest is 12, and my oldest is 21.
Wow, and how has that journey been going so far?
And that journey has been great because I've gotten a lot of help and support along the way from organizations that have just provided me with a lot of really great information.
Cool. So this is a really interesting topic. It's been in the news. It's talking about how much protection we should give our kids, how much freedom we should give our kids, really this kind of free-range parenting. And maybe that's a good place to start. Can you talk a little bit about what exactly free-range parenting means?
Sure. Yeah, free-range parenting has gotten a lot of press in the last decade, but it's actually a very, very old idea. So the Parent Encouragement Program where I work is based on the work of Alfred Adler, and he was an individual psychiatrist, and way back then, he talked about giving kids a lot of opportunities to make mistakes, because that's where the real learning takes place. He had a saying that we tell our parents all the time in parenting classes, that we should never do for our kids what the kids can do for themselves. So we should always give kids enough leeway to be able to kind of go out in the real world, make mistakes, learn from them, and then come back and try again.
So we live in a time that there seems like more and more things for parents to worry about. So how do we balance that, giving kids the freedom to go out and explore and fail and take chances with protecting them from things that can really be harmful long term and have serious consequences?
Right. That's a great question. Parents always wonder whether or not they're being too strict or too permissive.
Right.
And really, we always say, go with your parental instinct. So if it's a health or safety issue, as the parent, it really is your responsibility to make sure that the child is eating nutritiously, that the child goes to regular health appointments, well visits, and that they don't do things that are dangerous, like riding a bike without a helmet or running out into the street. However, there are a lot of other opportunities where the kids can, go out kind of on their own, make a mistake, learn from it, and learn that they don't have to be rescued.
And what is it about parenting that has gotten us to the point where parents are criticized for being helicopter parents? Why is it that it seems like for so many parents, well-meaning parents, our instincts are to protect our kids and not let them get hurt?
Fear. Fear. We are so afraid, and myself included, so afraid of what can happen. I think because in the news we hear all the bad things that happen, and parents are criticized because they haven't provided enough supervision or they have done something wrong. So much so that we can't even say, well, go outside and play in the neighborhood. So they start scheduling their child's time and they start supervising all those activities, or they're somehow really, really involved in their child's life to protect them from the fear that something will go wrong or that they will get hurt, either physically hurt or socially, emotionally destroyed by something that might happen.
And how do we convince parents to get over the fear then, I guess would be the next logical question.
Yeah, and it's tough, but just really have a lot of faith in your child and realize that you're doing this for the child. You're doing it for them. This is not about the parent and feeling angst over whether or not your child is upset about something, you're giving your child a gift. And the gift is to learn and experience and grow. And we all want that. We all want our children to grow up with the wherewithal to handle the challenges that life throws in their way. And that actually starts at the very young age of giving them responsibility and letting them run with it, letting them see, am I able to do this? So that they learn and that they develop and they leave the nest, so to speak. They leave your home at 18 or 20 or 22, whatever age they leave the home, that they are capable, competent, young adults.
And this is one of the best ways to do that.
And giving them, 18 years of freedom within limits,
right,
within boundaries, helps them to develop that.
Okay, so great. So let's say there's a parent out there who's been somewhat of a helicopter parent, is listening, is like, okay, I'm on board. What are some first steps? Maybe for parents that have younger kids, and also maybe some parents that have been one way and now want to kind of change as their kids are older.
Right. I love the idea of what we call natural consequences. So a natural consequence is something that happens when the parent does nothing. And I always say, it's great because I don't have to find the solution. I don't have to know the right thing to do. I just need to sit back, do nothing, and let it play out. Now, that does not mean that I'm a parent who is ignoring my child or neglectful. I'm not saying that at all. However, if you do nothing, so a child goes out and you say, hey, put your coat on, it's really cold, and the child goes out without their coat on, instead of you running after them with the coat saying, here, put this on, you're going to get cold, here, it's cold outside, it's going to snow, put the coat on, you just let your child go. You let him or her go outside and experience what it's like to go outside without a coat on, because learning comes from experience. It doesn't come from a parent nagging a child. It comes from learning what cold feels like, and then they come back and they put their coat on and you can say nothing. Again, you've done nothing except let the child experience the natural consequence of their action.
Is there ever a time when a parent does need to let real consequences instead of natural consequences take over?
Yes, and the parents always have the right and the responsibility to set what those limits are. So if it is a safety limit or a health limit, there needs to be, yes, a consequence to a child running out into the street, for example. Or we talk about screen time being a big issue. And so with screen time, we want to set those limits. So if it's, 1 hour, a day, but after homework is done, that you can have any form of screen, we do need to enforce that. So if that limit is broken, and it will be, because kids, their job is to test us. Their job is to test the world. So we then let them know in advance, if you spend more than an hour on the screen, we'll have to take it away for, a day.
So it's not natural consequences that you're going to fail out of school.
No, you're not going to let them fail out of school. You're not going to let them not brush their teeth ever. There are some things, those safety and health issues, you really do need to set that boundary and enforce a consequence.
Okay, so you got natural consequences, which you love. Any other tips for parents in terms of how to kind of transition or start out with this free-range parenting philosophy?
I would say parents need to give kids the benefit of the doubt with proper training. So I would never say, ever, that you should put your child on the metro and have them, go into town or ride a bus to grandma's house or something like that until they have been thoroughly trained and supervised throughout that training process. So maybe you have made that trip numerous times with the child and taught the child, how to pay for a metro ticket, where you get your metro ticket, and all through maybe, 8 years that you've been training them. So by the time they're 12, maybe they're capable and competent enough to do that, on their own within some limits or some parameters.
And what should a parent do? I've talked to many parents who are like, I know I shouldn't go talk to them when they're in the dugout, but I do it anyways. And we all do it. We all done things. It's so easy for us to tell another parent not to do it, but we do it ourselves. What can a parent tell themselves in that moment to stop them from doing something that they know they shouldn't be doing in terms of being overbearing to their kids?
Yes, sit on your hands, put masking tape or duct tape over your mouth. I think that the time when I was the most effective parent was actually the 2 or 3 weeks after I had my tonsils removed, and I couldn't talk. I couldn't give directions. I couldn't be overbearing. I couldn't nag. I couldn't yell. I couldn't do any of that. And my kids did beautifully. They figured things out themselves. They came to me only when they need help, and I could write out a quick direction on a pad, on a little whiteboard that I had, because I couldn't speak. So I would write out a quick thing on the whiteboard. Other than that, I just let them go, and they loved the freedom and were able to really, really shine. There were no sibling squabbles. And if there were, they figured it out themselves because I wasn't able to. We actually say, do some deep breathing, yourself. Find a mantra that you can use, or do some deep breathing to take yourself out of the situation, because it's not about you. It's about the child. So when your kid is, yes, in the dugout, the coach's job is to coach. Your job is to sit in silence and use the nonverbal clapping as a way to show support for both your team and the opposing team.
Right.
You want to show respect. These are all kids on the playing field. We want to support them all. It's not about your child doing well or not doing well. It's about what they're learning from the experience.
And I have another question, because I want to be sympathetic to parents, because that's hard for a lot of parents to do. Can they break this every now and again if there's something that they're like, okay, I'm on board, I'm going to do it, but there's this one thing, I love to make my kids lunch every day, even though I know they can make it. Is there anything like that?
And if that's your passion, that's how you feel really, really strongly, yes, you can do that. Go with your instincts. I certainly have taken a forgotten piece of homework to the school once, maybe twice, but I am not doing this regularly, and it's a special kind of a service that I might provide to them once in a while. So yes, every once in a while you do want to do something nice for your children, and we're not saying that you shouldn't. You should. You absolutely should, because that builds the relationship. You always want to put the relationship first. We always say connection before correction. So if there's any kind of correction you need to do with a child's behavior, you connect with them first. And doing things for them or with them is one way to make that connection.
Right, but don't do everything. So sometimes, even though they're going to be mad at you and say, you never helped me out and I can't believe I have to get my own snack, you're doing it for their best interest.
Correct. And you've set them up for success. So it's not just, gosh, I have to find my own snack, but you've set it up for success. So there's a snack drawer in the pantry where, you keep it filled and stocked, and they go and they find their own snack, or you've taught them how to make a snack. So they can do it themselves. You're not just sending them out there to figure it out on their own. You've set them up for success.
And so when this kind of free-range parenting, I guess, works at its best, how beautiful is it? How great is it for the family?
It is a way to really have everybody be on the same page. We have set up a family where everyone has each other's back, that we're supportive, that we all have our own, roles and our own responsibilities, and we're held accountable. Even the young children are held accountable for making sure that they contribute to the family. And because we all feel that way, it really, we need each other. We need each other, we support each other, we help each other get through kind of the daily ups and downs. And it really can create a lot of harmony in the family, and then a lot of competence when they leave and go off on their own and start living independently.
Wow, that sounds incredible. And that's possible. You're saying this is reality.
Possible.
Okay, that sounds like
possible.
an amazing situation.
We've seen it time and time again. If you give the kids a little bit of a lot of training and a little bit of flexibility in the limits that you're setting for them, they really grow and develop into just wonderful, caring, empathetic young adults.
Terrific. And I guess my last question is always this: if you could go back and give yourself as a young parent a piece of advice, what would it be?
One of the things that I wish I would have done differently is I wish that when I had a piece of advice or something I wanted to share with them, I wish that I would have asked and said, hey, I have some ideas about that. Do you want to hear them? And if they say no, which they often do, that's okay, because they don't want your help and guidance right there. But I guarantee if you ask and you're respectful and that's how you conduct yourself in the family, 3 hours later, they'll come back and they'll say, hey, Mom, what were you going to say about that? Like they always do want to know if you've created that kind of harmonious connected relationship with them. They always do want to know. They just might not want to know in the moment.
That is a great piece of advice. Well, thank you so much for that and for all your work helping parents. It's phenomenal, and we really appreciate your time today.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Before we get to our off-the-record segment, I wanted to let you know that the Parent Pep Talk is brought to you by Safe Kids Worldwide, an awesome nonprofit that's all about protecting kids from preventable injuries. Much like today's episode, Safe Kids helps parents create an environment where kids can explore and take chances while still minimizing the risks of serious injuries. Let me give you an example. This week's tip of the week is about wearing a properly fitted helmet when riding bikes, which will significantly reduce the chances of a serious head injury if there's a fall. Now, teaching your child to wear a helmet is not about being overprotective. In fact, it's just the opposite. Think of it this way. If you know your kid is wearing a properly fitted helmet, you can feel much better about letting them go outside, ride with their friends, and explore their surroundings. Even if they fall, they might get a few scrapes and scratches, but the most important part of their body will be protected. One more thing. Like seatbelts, research shows that kids are more likely to wear a helmet if they see you doing it too. So find one you like and wear it every ride. This is just one of the many tips from Safe Kids, so check them out at safekids.org, sign up for their Top Tips newsletter or product recalls, or join them on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram for more tips, videos, and all kinds of things to keep your kids healthy, active, and safe. Okay, so our next segment is called Off the Record, and here's how it works. We have a panel of kids who are going to answer your questions to try to give you a little insights into what your kids might be thinking. This week's question is from Leslie.
Hi, I have a question for the kids panel. I have to admit, I'm right on the fence between this idea of giving my kids lots of freedom and erring on the side of protection. How does it make you feel when your parents give you freedom, and do you notice a difference in the kids with parents who are a little more protective?
So we have Mason, McCartley, John, and Isabel. So you heard the questions. So what do you think?
It makes me feel like my parents trust me more, and I feel like it prepares me for the real world. Like, I remember when my parents let me do the metro with a friend on our own, and we got lost and it was hard, but now it's like easier.
How old were you when your parents let you do that?
I think it was like 8th grade, so it was just like last year.
And what was it like when you get lost? Were you freaking out? Were you scared?
There was one time where I was like freaking out because we were like on the wrong train and we were on there for too long.
And do you think that helped you in the long run to actually experience?
It did.
Why would you say that?
Because I do feel like it made me a little more confident, because like we had to ask people for directions, and I feel like this is like more in like younger kids, like like there's been times where I'm with my friends and we'll have to ask an adult for something for whatever reason, and we're all just like, no, you ask. But we didn't really have a choice when we were like trying to find the right train, and so we would have to talk with adults, and I don't know, that built our confidence, because now I can, whenever I need something from an adult, like if I have to buy something from a store on my own, I can do it no problem.
Oh, that's cool. So that meant so that little thing can make a difference.
Yeah, it
even though it must have been hard.
did.
Not where your parents are nervous wreck letting you take the metro?
Yeah.
Like, they were.
Yeah.
And
they were definitely nervous, but they gave me boundaries. Like, you have to be home at this time, and you need to call me when you get on the metro and get off, because I want to know that you're safe. And that was so fine with me. I totally understood that. That's something I recommend if you're like trying to give your kid like more freedom and you're not used to it. Like, what you could do that might make you feel better is give them like some boundaries, or even tell them like, okay, I'm gonna try to let you prove your trust. If you don't do these things, then you won't be allowed to do them again.
I agree with Isabel. You could like tell them that this is like a test run for them, and they might, if they do well, then they can keep doing this, but this is also new for the parent too. So you might want to talk to your kid about it and say, it's new for both of us, so we're just going to try it out.
it seems like all your parents are pretty good about letting you guys have those freedoms within boundaries. If we get back to the question, do you have friends that you see whose parents are overprotective, and do you see the way that maybe they are different in terms of their development?
Yes, there is one kid in my neighborhood who his family is super overprotective, and they're kind of mean to like other kids because they don't have like enough time to like actually socialize with other kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then like the parents want to like always control their kids and stuff. I have one of my friends, and her mom is literally a tiger mom. She's like all over her about everything. And that's just way overprotective. And it's like it's shaping your kid's life to what you want, not what the kid loves.
So what would you want to, if you could talk to her mom and tell her from your perspective and how you see it's affecting her daughter, what would you say to her mom?
I would just say to her mom, like, your daughter doesn't like this stuff that you're pushing her to do. It's not what you want. It's your daughter's life. And I know it's hard to let go, but then again, it's not you, it's her.
And you've seen the benefits of what happens when parents give their kids freedom to make their own choices and their own mistakes, and how it can affect people, right?
Yeah, I feel like it also just like strengthens your relationship with your parents.
Why is that? That's an interesting point. Why would you say that?
I mean, one of the biggest reasons is that they trust you to do whatever it is that they're allowing you to do.
Because they know that you can do it.
And how does that feel when you have that feeling that your parents believe in you? I guess that's what this is about now that you said it, McCarley, that you do know when your parents believe in you and when they don't, and it can make a difference. Is that true?
Yeah, definitely.
When my parents first started giving me the opportunity to like prove that I can do things on my own, it made me feel really good, because like afterwards when I'd come home after doing that, I'm like, wow, like I really just did that on my own without the help of someone, and it gave me confidence. It made me just like feel better about myself, knowing that I was like, it made me feel like I accomplished something really big. So yeah.
And did you ever go to your parents and say, hey, thank you so much for doing that?
Well, I'd come home and I'd be like, thank you so much for allowing me to do that, because you really just like made my day, and it made my mood like way better.
Awesome. Well, that sounds great. Well, thank you guys so much for your time and your insights and for helping out. I'm sure it's going to make a huge difference for parents. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
And now it's time for our Taking One for the Team segment. I kind of think of parenting as a team sport. Well, this is when one generous parent takes one for the team by sharing a personal story that might not paint their kid or their parenting in the best light, but it hopefully helps the rest of us realize that there are no perfect kids, there are no perfect parents, and that we're all doing our best. This week's story is from Dave.
I'm Dave. Just wanted to share a little story about sort of the struggle we've had between this desire to let your kids go out and experience the world and become independent, and then the anxiety of sending them out into the world and letting them become independent. So for my older son, we were very protective about walking to school on his own. He would ask to do that, and we would say, well, I'll walk you today, maybe tomorrow. And can I just want to walk to the 7-Eleven. Well, I'll drive you there. And
what was it? Were you just nervous that something bad was going to happen to him? Were you, what was the thinking?
Yeah, well, nervous that something bad was going to happen to him. It's going to be my fault for allowing him to do something that maybe he wasn't ready for.
Right.
So, that sort of thing adds up. And I think he was becoming more hesitant and a little scared himself. So I think that anxiety transfers from you to your kid unintentionally, just by osmosis. Kids can pick that up and they sense that.
But was there one moment when you guys were thinking, okay, we thought what we were doing was right, but now based on this, maybe we need to reevaluate?
Well, yeah, I think we got a call from a teacher at I think it was at preschool. No, maybe a little later. Maybe it was early elementary school, and said, let us know that he was getting scared of doing certain things, going out on the playground and playing certain games, and he would sit on his own, and the teacher would come up to him and he said he would express like anxiety about doing various activities with the kids. So I think that was a wake-up call for us.
So what was the change? How did you guys change your behavior, and what kind of difference did it make?
Well, I mean, I think we started to encourage him more to do things on his own when it made sense and when we thought it was safe, like taking his bicycle to school, like going on trips. Like there were school trips that were organized at various times that he never wanted to go to. So we sort of started encouraging and sometimes insisting that he do things on his own. And he did start to sort of break out of that shell a little bit about, and we broke out of our protective shell a little bit.
That's what I was going to ask you. So we know that what you did had a nice effect on him, and he was able to go off and have more freedom and have more confidence. But How about you guys? How were you able to convince yourselves that I need to ignore my own nerves and do this because it's best for my child?
Well, I think it was the realization that we were transferring this anxiety to our kids, and that was impeding and impairing their ability to go out and do what they needed to do. So I think it was a realization that we were going overboard. And
so were you, when he would ride his bike on his own to school, were you a nervous wreck at home?
Yeah, yes. We were always a nervous wreck. But I mean, that improved also. Initially, yeah, it was nerve-wracking.
So based on your experience, then, what is your advice for other parents out there?
Well, looking back, I would say, yes, it's going to cause you anxiety, but in the long run, it'll pay off tenfold, because you'll produce kids who are functioning and thriving out in the world and overcoming obstacles because they've had the chance to make their mistakes and do what they need to do in order to learn how to function and once they get out of your sight. So in hindsight, I would say, yeah, it's going to be a struggle, but it does get better and you turn out better and stronger kids.
And if someone had given you that speech when your kids were young, would you have listened to it?
No, I would have completely ignored them. They remained as anxious as I've always been.
Well, we appreciate that your experience and your insights are going to probably help a lot of parents who are willing to listen. So thank you so much for sharing that story and for being awesome parents to your kids.
Thanks. Nice to be here, Gary.
And now here's a short preview from our next episode on nutrition and just how much parents need to worry about what their kids eat.
Can you talk a little bit about your general philosophy?
Yeah, I mean, I have found, I've been in the field for almost 20 years, and I really have found that the more absolute no's you have, or food rules you have, or things you absolutely don't allow your children to eat, oftentimes the more that can backfire.
And that's the end of our show. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Parent Pep Talk. If you liked our podcast, please subscribe for free on iTunes or the podcast app, and also leave us a rating. If you didn't like it, I promise I'll try to do better the next time. I'd also love to hear from you. If you have any comments or questions for me or our teen panel, or stories you'd like to share that would make other parents feel better, or ideas for episodes, please don't hesitate to email me at parentpeptalk@safekids.org or contact me on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at Gary Carton. Have a great week, everyone. Remember, you're doing great, even if it doesn't always feel like it, and we'll see you next time on the Parent Pep Talk.